Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us for our weekend weather update, plus the outlook for next week across New Zealand, Australia and the South Pacific Islands. And we've still got a big focus on New Zealand with the rain that's coming through and more flooding, more very heavy rain expected as we go through Friday night and Saturday morning. And then it finally does start to clear away. Let's take a look at the animated wind map today. You can still see this powerful high pressure zone to the east going all the way up to Fiji and north of there, and then that airflow sort of stops and part of it is coming down and being caught up by that low as well, so dragging down that high level of moisture and that atmospheric river that we've been seeing, which is pretty much along this zone. It's still raining in the south, but the winds aren't as strong. And over in Australia, speaking of blustery conditions, we do have a windy west to southwest change that is moving through. Let's take a look at the water vapor map. We had a lot of positive comments yesterday about this, so we're showing it to you again, thanks to our friends at Weather Zone. But you see in the bright white areas, that's where the heavy rain is, or the most amount of moisture in the atmosphere, which leads to rain. And the dark area, that's the cooler, drier, southerly side to it, or at least the drier air mass to the west of this wet northerly flow across New Zealand. You can also see that westerly change coming through into Australia. All right, let's take a look at temperatures quickly. Departure from normal. Look at New Zealand compared to Australia. It shows how this atmospheric river is driving in much warmer than usual weather. So the red, that indicates that New Zealand is 4 to 8 degrees above normal for what's normally recorded at this time of the year. Whereas Australia looks more normal for this time of the year with a front moving through, warm in front of that, cooler behind it. So kind of classic setup really across Australia, but New Zealand really stands out. Let's have a look at rainfall quickly. The heaviest falls are still in the upper South Island. We're looking at rainfall totals of around 90 to 100, 120 millimetres over the next 2 days. And most of that is for Friday night and Saturday morning. Rainfall totals in the north where there's been flooding drops to about 20 to 30 millimetres, so that's much better. And around Taranaki, Mount Taranaki's had a metre of rain from this event. Very similar to when Cyclone Bowler came in the 80s up around this corner of New Zealand and dropped about a metre over a similar amount of time. But this part of the world, well certainly the upper part of the South Island, similar to Gisborne, doesn't do well with heavy rain events like this. Mount Taranaki on the other hand, so it seems to pull through very well. It drains away quite nicely out to sea for a lot of areas, although not all. We have seen some flooding there too. In Australia, not much to talk about, just the bottom of the scale for the rainfall, although some helpful rain around parts of Victoria getting further inland for the farmers who want some rain where it's a little bit drier further inland. Otherwise, not much to talk about rain-wise. So let's get into the forecast. Here we are for Saturday, and the atmospheric river in New Zealand finally comes to an end. The leftovers of it sitting out here. Now we're getting back to the westerlies, back to what we normally would be seeing at this time of the year. Not perfect yet for Nelson and Marlborough. There'll be and the west coast and Taranaki. It'll take a few more hours across Saturday or the day, to finally clear up. But by Saturday night, it should be a lot better. It should be a lot drier around many parts of the country. Now, as we go into Sunday, you can sort of see why. Those westerly winds are clearing away that wet northerly. So we've got a few showers around Taranaki and a few showers right over on the western coastline, but dry in Takaka, Golden Bay for the most part. Only just a couple of showers coming there for you. Nelson and Marlborough both looking dry, and also Northland where there's been flooding. So this is a much better map to look at on Sunday as conditions finally start to ease in the New Zealand area. But then we focus on Australia going into next week. So on Monday morning, this is 6 o'clock in the morning Australian time, very strong winds, gale force winds coming through here, brushing the coastline of Victoria and brushing parts of Tasmania through Bass Strait here, 80, 90 kilometre an hour winds. And a fun fact, nothing to do with the weather, 8,000 years ago, did you know that you could walk across Bass Strait? There you go, now you know it. All right, let's get into the forecast for Monday, because there's this big wintry change coming on Monday for the south of Australia. I mentioned this yesterday. It comes in at basically the same time from Western Australia to South Australia to Victoria and Tasmania. You all get this burst of big, strong, wintry southerly winds coming through. Ahead of it, strong to gale force west to northwest winds. So there could be severe gales around the southeastern corner of Australia. And the next high starting to come in towards northern New Zealand. But unfortunately, a small low's trapped in between between, which brings in more rain for the upper South Island. But the rainfall totals aren't huge, but there could be another 10 to 20 millimetres or so coming through. So keep up to date with your rainfall totals at Rural Weather and at Weather Watch. Now by Tuesday, that actually clears away, so good news again. High pressure from Australia is up here. Wintry change coming into Australia though, quite noticeable. You'll feel those temperatures dropping through inland areas, in particular west of the ranges. Wet weather moving up on the eastern side of Victoria, ACT, and getting into New South Wales. Sydney looks a bit rubbish here on Tuesday, and windy weather blowing through Tasmania. And then that system lining up for the South Island. Windy nor'westers, rain, classic cold front, and up in the tropics, light easterlies, showers. Nothing too dramatic up there. Our final map for Wednesday shows that cold wintry sou'wester carrying on. So Victoria, your temperatures are not that flash next week, low pressure in the Tasman will start to form. Mild northerlies coming back to New Zealand. So we'll keep an eye on this one, because as it moves in later next week, yes, there could be more rain coming back in for the areas that have just been flooded. In some ways, that could be a good thing, because especially in farms that have got a lot of silt on them, the rain can help wash that away if it's not too much. And this looks like the sort of system where it may not be too much. But we'll keep an eye on it. Your rainfall totals at Rural Weather and Weather Watch will keep you posted. Now, before I go, a quick comparison of this week, starting from August 15, from 2011 to 2022. 2011, it snowed heavily to sea level in Dunedin, Christchurch, Wellington, and we had snow flurries, would you believe it, in some parts of Auckland City. And we actually had snow flurries north of Auckland as well, up around Kaitaia in the ranges there, which is quite crazy to have snow flurries that far north, caused by high pressure over Tasmania and low pressure to the southeast. We've reversed that this week. So 11 years later, the high is on the other side of New Zealand, the low is on the other side. The two are working in tandem, and now they're pulling down tropical air. You can see these maps at weatherwatch.co.nz and at Rural Weather, and a news story which explains it a little bit better than I'm doing in this short bit here. Anyway, that is all from me. Thanks for the exceptional comments across this week. I hope you've all been safe, and I hope you have a good weekend. We'll see you again on Monday.